Hello my friends, this is Gosha from Cosmic Agency, and today I have a first video of the series about the mirrors. And it was not going to be any series, it was just going to be one video, but as I started to edit the transcripts and the conversations, it turns out that there is a lot of conversations, information about this subject, so it's going to be 4 videos. Now, the topic is not about mirrors, because I saw in some comments that you think it's about just regular mirrors and perhaps some kind of a metaphysical phenomenon of, something happening like crossing to another density or dimension or entities crossing over. No, it's not that. It's not really about the mirrors. It's also not about the law of mirrors, even though it's connected, okay? This is totally different subject that I've never mentioned in detail, even though it was mentioned here and there. And also Yazhi Swaruu made 2 videos about this. So if you follow her channel, you should know more or less what this is about. And it's important actually you do see her videos, because this video here, this series of videos, it's not going to be like an essay. It's not going to be like an ordered and structured essay expose on a subject explaining what the mirrors are, like Mari does. These are just random personal conversations that happen here and there that I actually had to kind of structure and order and put together so it looks like it's some kind of a coherent whole. So just keep that in mind, and that's why actually I have to make this introduction here explaining a little bit what the mirrors are, so you know what this video is about, because it just jumps right into the conversation. So the mirrors here, what we are referring here to, mostly in my video at least here, it's about the people who look like you, who are exactly the same, and kind of like doppelgangers. Doppelgangers, people who just are like you, they are even dressed like you, and sometimes they even meet. But here also we are referring to the mirrors, people on Earth who are exactly like them there on the ship. Those mirrors produce somehow mysteriously, they don't even understand why, and many times, as you will see in this video, they don't even like those mirrors on the Earth of themselves. So some of these mirrors here can be real people, could be not real people. That will be discussed at the end, which, by the way, I'm going to appear at the end just to try to kind of put it all together, because it's a confusing subject. Probably for some of you it's difficult, it's complex, not even stellar races understand it fully, and there are different reasons why those mirrors appear. So stay tuned until the end. I'm going to make a summary. Now here the conversation begins with Athena Swaruu, and I have to give you also an intro how this begins so you understand. She's approaching here the subject from the angle of inserting something from the outside of a certain matrix into a matrix. So if something gets inserted artificially or coming down here on Earth, which is a sort of a self-sustained matrix from outside of Earth, let's call it 3D, 5D, then the 3D system has to kind of justify its existence. So it looks for the elements from what's available in the system itself, in the 3D, to explain the reason why that something from the outside of the system is even there in the first place. And this was explained in more detail in a video about inserts. I think I made that video before. I'm going to put the link in the description box. So this is how the conversation starts, because it is related to how the mirrors get produced. It's going to be one of the ways that mirrors generate. So I'm going to leave you with a conversation. Okay, it's going to be last year conversation with Athena Swaruu, also with Yazhi Swaruu, and in the end, see me for the summary of this video.
Originally in Spanish, April 2022. I need a mathematical table. Either there is already one online that I can use, or I have to make one from scratch applying vortex math, where each number represents a frequency in a recirculating potential energy field. You cannot remove or add a number without altering the numerical matrix that surrounds and sustains it. That is, each number is in place for a reason. That is why if you change a 6 and turn it into 9, as when you insert something new in a matrix, you also change all the numbers and their relationships with each other, equations that justify the 9 that you placed artificially to be in that place, changing with the 9 the other numbers, and with them by representing frequencies that in turn represent objects and situations, you create an alternate past that substantiates the existence of the object or situation represented by the number 9 that you have artificially introduced. Everything that exists has a reason for being. That is, a process by which it exists. So you cannot create or insert anything new from one matrix to another without also creating the underlying raison d'être from the perspective explainable in the terms of the receiving energetic numerical matrix. That is a mathematical law. It is the same with mirrors. But mirrors are not inserted. I understood that they generate themselves. They are not self-generated. If they are mirrors of people here, it's an artificial insert. But what you are referring to is, for example, the doppelgangers, which are both from the same matrix, in this case, the 3D one. There may be other explanations, like, for example, that they are the same person from different timelines that crossed over. It happens all the time. Artificial insert? Artificial in the sense that if it were not for the presence of the 5D people in orbit, their Earth mirrors would not produce? In what way artificial? If we use the real example of one of us on this ship, let's call him Nayael, with the Earth mirror below, let's call him Jack. The fact that Nayael has arrived here and realizes that Jack exists does not mean anything, because a person with 5D perception sees well everything that happens in 3D. But the moment they are both in the same line of perception of someone, for example you, then the concept Nayael versus Jack is created as two. Then it is artificial for both to exist, because it is as a result of the use of technology of some kind. I do not understand how it is the result of technology. That is, spacecraft travel. The concept or the fact that there are two Nayael Jack, that is what is artificial. Because without technology, there would be Jack on one side and Nayael on the other, without ever knowing that the other exists. But Jack doesn't know that Nayael exists. No, but Nayael does know that Jack exists. Technology is what makes it possible to perceive two and not just one. Like using a ship that travels back in time and brings back the other version of a person. Most obvious way to realize it was by technology. But how was Jack produced as the mirror of Nayael? What is the process? Specifically about Jack, it is not known. It seems that Nayael did live there at some point. Another point is that sometimes they are not real people. That is, it is the matrix mathematically adjusting everything to incorporate the presence of someone from outside the matrix. Because of the process I explained earlier, that you cannot insert anything in there without creating why it exists from the logical explanation of the point of view of the receiving matrix. Am I clear? Okay, wait. Naya lived here as a step down, yes? And that creates the mirror in the matrix? Yes, that is what is specifically accepted about Jack Naya, but the details are not known. So there are no Earth mirrors of the Taigetans living in Taigeta? Yes, there may be, but they would not be produced by the energetic matrix of the place, but by other causes, such as the crossing of timelines, or by the action of a spaceship with temporal travel. About the timelines that cross, what happens is that there are no timelines defined as independent, self-contained identities. Rather, a timeline will always be defined by the range of perception and consciousness understanding of the people who live it. They are the ones who form it. So, if one or more people can perceive the presence of something from another timeline, in this case the mirror, they are merging timelines, creating a more expanded one, more expanded consciousness. The expansion of consciousness implies greater understanding of everything, that is, to see more timelines. Someone with a narrow mind can only see the official version of an event, but someone with higher consciousness can understand not only the official version of the event, but why it is claimed, why it is false, with what agenda, and can also see the real cause of the event, which implies that the higher consciousness person can perceive several timelines, being that I define a timeline as the range of consciousness perception of one or more people. And the fact that one or more people can see the same timeline is because of the agreements of perception. Yes, okay. Thinking. And going back to the mirrors. So, are some of them real people with soul and everything? How do they relate to the soul of the person in 5D? Are they the same person? Each one is different. Generally, they are the same person. Yes, the mirrors have souls, but everything depends on each case. Nothing is fixed. Or better explained, it is a different moment in the life of a person, whether or not of the same incarnation. But the fact that it has been generated by the presence of a 5D person makes it next in the sequence, not that it is past incarnation, because first there was the 5D person near or on Earth, not the other way around. Sequence from a certain point of view, yes. It could be that a person is on Earth as a step down and then leaves to come back in time and be stepped down again. There would be two of the same person being the same. Another example is that a 5D person steps down to Earth and at that moment, if he has no previous history to support his existence, an energetically created mathematical history would be produced to support his existence there. That is, his presence is matrixified. For example, starseeds who know they are step-downs but their families continue to insist they are human because they saw them born and grow up, being that those memories would be implants of the matrix itself. However, to muddle everything up even more, you can and do create those implants artificially as well. Wow. And these mirrors, if they are real, are they also considered starseeds? Because mirrors sound a little bit like you are less. I understand that they are not less, right? They are complete people. Again, it differs from case to case, and they don't have to be less. They are simply the same person as seen from the two different moments of their same existence. Simpler explanation. June 2023. In the case of a stellar person and the terrestrial one being the same, can you tell who is the mirror and who is the original? Or two are original? Or in the case of two terrestrial persons being the same, also talking about the events? It depends on the qualities of each mirror. It can happen that the mirror is the same as the original, but that tends to be because it was generated with technology as a jump between timelines of a spaceship, bringing the same person to the timeline where she or he was already. But I mean non-technological. Let's see, maybe what you think is the original is the mirror and it was generated later, especially when it comes to Earth cases. Some may be weak ones, like just an echo or a bad copy that's not quite in this reality. For example, you see it, but you talk to it and it doesn't respond, and after a while it disappears. But the same person walking, kicking and talking twice, that's by spacecraft or portal. Yes, but those are two people from different timelines meeting, not mirrors, for me. Two are original. In that case, yes, it would be two originals. And so it is, as you say. If it involves a portal, spaceship or technology, that is not a mirror. Mirror is something more metaphysical, something of the very fabric of reality that causes a duplication or copy in varying degrees of strength or accuracy. Yes, so in the case of these mirrors, I don't understand very well how you can know which one is original and which one is a mirror, if it is a strong one. Even between 3D and 5D, who says that you are original there and mirrors are here? Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you are the mirrors. I think there are cases where you can't tell, and it can cause conflicts between the two. For example, Nayael here, who can't stand Jack. Yes, especially if it's a real person, not an organic portal, who dictates who the original is. Because that would kind of place the Earth as inferior, us here being mirrors and ETs originals. I think it's not so black and white. They occur everywhere. They are more common between two realms, perhaps because of the separation, but both of them also can happen on Earth. It is not unusual for one to live thousands of kilometers away from the other. For example, one in America and the other in Europe, so that cultural separation also functions as a realm, as if reality could put one person per place, thinking that they would not meet. So, in this situation, how do you know who is a mirror of whom? Or maybe they are two originals, just duplicates? I would say that they are simply two originals. Then the word mirror would have to be redefined. Because are they really? Or are they duplicates? Same person, same event, printed more than once. but two originals, unless it is an organic portal. It's just that those are not mirrors, they are duplicates. But there is a non-real component in one type of mirrors, that is the diffuse, weird mirror that does not answer when spoken to. It is not a real person, it is not someone different, it is just a manifestation or an echo of the real person. So, in the case of the organic portal or the energetic echo, it is clear. But in the case of one realm and the other, both seem real. For example, Yazhi, Jack, where they are two different people, but at some point they were the same person. At some point in the creation of the souls in the ether, they were the same person, although they are now different. And although today they use the same body model, the interests of Yazhi differ drastically from those of Jack. Yes, the immediate simple explanation is that it is the same person in another timeline, because life here in the misnamed 5D is not supposed to intersect with life in 3D. They are the same person and at the same time, because everything happens in the now. From another chat, it is as if there were a limited number of avatars that must be repeated. That is, if it exists in one place with its rules and laws, it must exist everywhere, but adapting its laws and rules to the interpretation given by the collective unconscious of each realm and place. So, if something has certain attributes and a reason for being in one place, and it has to exist in the other, it ends up adapting the attributes and what defines that person or thing to the rules and laws of the other place. That's why something can have a genesis in 5D and another genesis in 3D. But they come to be the same thing, the same genesis, the same reason for existing, but with the more complex explanation on the 5D side, on the side of the more complex density. And that explanation of the existence of whatever it is must also include the explanation of the less complex density, in this case, the terrestrial 3D. That's why a person can be stellar and have a life history in space, and the same person can have a normal 3D reason for existing on Earth. And that is why they take that as proof of falsehood then, when what is happening is much more complex. And the simplest explanation is not always the correct one. Because in that statement, that the simplest explanation tends to be the correct one, nobody has explained what defines the simplest. And nobody has explained what or with what parameters you define what is correct and what is not.
But as the D, the frequency state, is more complex, wouldn't those rules and their laws tend to blur because everything would be integrating?
Yes, and so it is, but they still exist when they are observed only with limited parameters, that is, as if observing only from 3D. For example, the photo of someone from space that the skeptics say is a terrestrial person, where they can even identify them with a name, an ID, and all that human stuff, and they scream fraud. But from above, that's only how the matrix accommodated the presence of a stellar person there to its algorithms. A stellar that has a much more complex history. And if some ufologists define what is and what is not extraterrestrial, they will only do it with parameters limited to the 3D rules that do not correspond to all the existing laws in the cosmos. Therefore, they cannot explain why that terrestrial person with an ID has a highly extraterrestrial mind and all that would be behind it. This as an example. Reality is very complex, but it is still only one reality, that of the point of view of the original source. All other realities, timelines, or parallel universes, other dimensions, other densities, all of that is a product of limiting ideas within the minds of beings with limitations of perception.
Okay, so here we go. That was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Now let's go through some main points. Okay, I was gonna kind of make live maybe summarizing some of these points, but I think it's better this way, so you right away have the information a bit more structured. So the mirrors that appear here on Earth could be real, could be organic portals, could be many things depending on the case. So now, what are these cases? How do they generate? Well, first here it was mentioned that some of them are technologically produced, like Athena and Yazhi both mentioned that, which for me, and also for Mari, I think for them also, they are not really mirrors, because if a person travels through a spaceship, that's what's meant here technologically, for example, if the person travels with a spaceship to another timeline or whatever, and they can meet, and they meet themselves in that place, talking to each other and interacting, they are both originals. They are both the same person, just in a different timeline, so to speak. So they are not like reflection of each other. They are not mirrors of each other, not in this sense how we are speaking about mirrors. So that, but I will mention that technologically you can see a mirror of a person, but most of them get generated naturally and no one knows why exactly. Even the stellar races don't know. So there must be some kind of a strong soul connection on the soul level, that's for sure. And also it could be some sort of, as Mari explained in her video, some sort of a entanglement on the quantum level. That's also an explanation. If you want to see more on this specific point and other points, see Mari's videos, she made 2 about the dimensional mirrors. I'm going to leave the links in the description box. So they do get generated naturally for some reason. Like, for example, there could be, like in this case, Nayayel, which, by the way, it's a fake name. I invented that name. Sitting on a ship, and then his mirror, like a terrestrial version, appears, and it's there for some reason, even though, as Athena here explained, it's accepted there on Toleka that this happened because he was here living before. So the matrix maybe incorporated him producing his version here on Earth. It's a very enigmatic process how it happens. Then also another reason how they could be generated is because it could be a different timelines crossing. So it could be the same person. You could view Nayayel and Jack as the same person. It's just for some reason they happen to be happening at the same point in space-time. So Nayayel can observe Jack, even though Jack cannot observe Nayayel. For some reason, they are crossing the timelines because, as it was explained here, the timelines is not something super separated and independent realm. The line is very foggy here between the so-called timelines. And then another way how they could produce is that they could be simply some sort of an echo of of a person, of a soul himself, herself, generated by that person. And that's going to be discussed in video number 3, where Yazhi and Robert will be talking about a specific case of a guy who was reporting that he was going to the apartment, he was trying to open the apartment, but on the staircase he saw himself doing exactly that. And he escaped. He got nervous and he left. So anyway, this is going to be video number 3. So in this case, it could be like an echo, like an astral projection sort of that very same person, some sort of a remnant, some kind of manifestation of the soul of that very person. And then also, it could be simply some kind of a not real person manifestation, very weak mirror, like Yazhi said. So no one knows how they get created here exactly. But then we have these types of mirrors that get created when between two separate realms. This is specifically seen between two separate realms, like for example the Earth and outside Earth. Let's call it 3D, 5D. And this is specifically when, for example, a person from the outside steps down or comes in here, and well, the matrix that we have here needs to look for, within its system, needs to look for the elements that justify the presence of that person. So it has to refill the missing pieces in the matrix. That person is like artificially inserted. It went down. And as Athena here was explaining in the beginning, it's all based on math and based on numerical equations. Everything is represented by the numerical value, which is a frequency, even situations, objects, events. And if you insert something into that self-sustained system from the outside, those values have to be readjusted. The system has to look for, okay, how do we adapt the values to incorporate that new element that was just introduced into our system. And how does it do that? It has to look for its own familiar justifying elements to introduce that new foreign element into itself. And that's why we will see terrestrial explanations of extraterrestrial phenomena or extraterrestrial situations or extraterrestrial people. That's why many times for step downs, even a full history is created this way by the matrix. The matrix fills the void. Why is that person here? So you will find the DNA, you will find memories of the friends who supposedly interacted with that person when that person was at school. The parents will have memories of the childhood of that person, but it could be simply, or not simply, very not simply, generated by the matrix itself, metaphysically. It just happens. Somehow the matrix needs to incorporate that person into itself with what is at its disposal. So it always with the reasons that are understandable within that system. You understand? It's amazing. But now, to complicate this further, as Athena said, we also have artificial inserting of reasons. So memories could be implanted artificially, for example. So that sounds maybe a bit cold and strange. Well, it happens sometimes. It's mostly done by the many times it's done by the negative races when they need a certain person, to have certain memories for whatever certain reason. This has been explained in detail in the video about inserts. I'll put the link in the description box. Now, this phenomenon can be mostly really studied if you have access to both of these realms that are separate. Like in this case, we have 5D, we have 3D, so them being there, they can see this happening. But we, not having access to their realm really, we cannot see this happening. So we cannot witness this, we cannot study this. So for us, it's non-existent. That's why many times skeptics would appear and say, well, this person that is a step down, for example, has all the history. They have a DNA, they have, all the details of their past here on Earth. This is not extraterrestrial person. Well, because all they see is what the matrix created, or what was created for that person within the parameters of the matrix here on Earth. And they will not have the access to the full history of what's behind that person, behind the terrestrial explanation of why this person is here. And that's why they will call fraud. That's why they will say, no, this person is not extraterrestrial, because they will not be able to have, like I said, the access to all these other elements behind that person. And that's going to be their problem, because they have their own parameters of what the extraterrestrial person should be. But the extraterrestrial person, when they get inserted here or when they come down, they will have terrestrial, many times they will have terrestrial history, and that doesn't, and they will have their own 5D history. And just because we can only see the 3D history, it doesn't make them any less extraterrestrial. So that's very, very important to note here. Okay, and here in this video, one more point. I mentioned that, maybe you up there are the mirrors of the people here and not the reverse. But now that I think about it, no, it cannot be that way. The people here on Earth, they have to be the mirrors of the ones there, because it's our system here that doesn't contemplate the existence of theirs. So it's our matrix that has to numerically, digitally, metaphysically create a reason for the existence of the 5D whatever. So it's here where the system will be generating those filling mirrors, I think. So it's not the reverse, because the 5D world already sees and understands the reasons, 3D, 5D reasons. They don't have to, the system doesn't have to incorporate the inventing the justifications and creating mirrors. But as I understand, it can happen anywhere, because they did say it also happens out there. So not much more can be said at this point, because it's a very ununderstood, very not understood phenomenon even by them. So now, to just prepare you for what's coming, the next video, the video number 2, actually will continue with the thread of how that history of the stellar person gets generated here by the terrestrial matrix. It's very, 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 very interesting. So this is going to be a conversation with Yazhi about this topic. It is related with the topic of mirrors. Now, also the video number 3 will be a conversation between Yazhi and Robert about the video, which I mentioned already, about a guy who sees himself walking into his own apartment and what this could be. And right away, I will tell you that here they are discussing the possibility that this could be that kind of a mirror that is an echo of the person himself, or perhaps timelines crossing. Even Yazhi herself is not sure 100% what this could be. And then video number 4, it will be questions from you. So some time ago last year, I actually collected some of the questions in this topic of mirrors, and about 5 of them, I think, or so, will be included. And some of my questions there intertwined as well. And also, if you watch the videos made by Mari in this topic, you will see that she's also mentioning something else still. And that's a mirroring effect of different situations. So, for example, something happens in the hangar, a plane breaks, a starship breaks in the hangar, and then something happens in exactly the same chain of events to the plane on Earth. Or, for example, when there is a stellar person, extraterrestrial person, connected in some way to a starseed, then that starseed will fall and hurt themselves, and the same happens to the extraterrestrial person connected to that starseed. So that's super interesting as well. Mari talks about this in her videos, so watch her videos, and I hope to see you next in my next 3 videos. And then I'm also working, I know, at the same time on videos about Yazhi. That's in the production as well. So thanks for sticking around until this point, and enjoy the next video that is coming very soon. Bye bye.